Hey guys, welcome back to the Hybrid Athlete channel. I am Dr. Paul Rimmett, and today I'm going to talk to you about 5 principles that you should follow if you're an endurance athlete worried about strength. And if you're not worried, you should be, because it will do things like improve economy and efficiency of movement. So, what are these 5 principles? Principle number 1. If you're going to do strength training, do strength training. I work with a number of endurance athletes who do strength training, but it's not really strength training. They might do the odd bits of circuits, they might do the odd bit of core work, and there's nothing wrong with those things for a bit of general conditioning and a bit of movement. But if you're going to do strength training, do an actual strength program. So that's point number 1 that people don't do. They think just go in the gym and fluffing around on some machines are there, pick up some heavy stuff, move heavy things with good control, good form, and in a safe and effective manner with good amounts of intent. Principle number 2 is that if you're going to do strength work, let's do strength work properly, which is basically you're looking at 3 sets of 1 to 5 repetitions. Now, when we're talking about repetitions, we're talking here about something that is challenging enough that so when we finished our set of whatever exercise it is, it's challenging enough that when we finished our set that we feel like we've done some work in the muscles, but we don't need to have to train every single set to failure. We'd have to blast ourselves for strength work. Now, you might go through phases of the year where this is the case, but in competition season, or when your running volume or cycling volume or swimming volume, whatever it is that you do is increasing, you still want to keep some strength work in there, but you don't want it to be so fatiguing that it's busting you up. So basically go in there and do a repetition range of 1 to 5, where at the end of each one of those sets, whatever load that you choose, you are basically coming off that and saying, look, actually that was like a 7 to 9 out of 10 effort. You don't want 10 out of 10 grinding those last reps, or if it's a heavy single, grinding those reps out. Look, the risk versus reward for endurance athletes just isn't there, and then just take your time to progress loads over time when the weight does become more comfortable. Point number 3, strength training doesn't have to be powerlifting training or bodybuilding training in the sense of the specific movements. We don't necessarily have to squat, for example, in order to gain strength. For a lot of people, if they don't have much time for strength training, or you're beginning to strength training, the risk versus reward and also the cost time benefit in terms of your strength development will probably be better spent elsewhere. So you can use variations on exercises that you can train in that sort of 1 to 5 rep range that aren't necessarily things like a back squat, which is quite a technical lift. So there's lots of things that you can do in the gym, which, if you've got access to a gym facility like leg pressing and things like that, it's still strength training. Don't think that strength training has to necessarily be free weights. If you've got the time, energy, and desire to put in the effort to learn technique, then that's absolutely fine. I'd always encourage that, but also don't feel like you've got to be doing these really complex movements that are quite technical. Develop base levels of strength on more simple, easily controlled movements before you start, strapping several hundred kilos of weight on your back. I know like track cyclists love big heavy squatting and stuff, but you don't need to be doing those things. Particularly if you're an athlete that's maybe got some back issues, just getting a bit older, and you've got a few joint pains and stuff as well. We want strength training to be about strength, not about technique. And again, not saying that we shouldn't squat or we shouldn't deadlift or we shouldn't do any heavy classical more powerlifting or bodybuilding like free weight type movements. We could include those, but they're not essential to strength training. Principle number 4, train your whole body. Okay, so you might be a cyclist, you might be a runner, whatever it might be. You might think, well, I'm going to get really strong legs. Yes, your strength training is going to be mostly leg focused, let's be honest, but you should include some upper body work in there as well. Reason for that being, well, if you're a trail or ultra runner like I am, you're going to trip over and fall. You want to be strong, you want to be robust, you want to be able to tolerate load, you want to be able to have a good posture. You don't want to have an imbalanced physique as well, because then that can cause some other issues further down the line. Not only does strength training help us produce force, but it also allows us to strengthen tendons and connective tissues in order to make sure that we are less likely to have any instances of injury, but also that we can use our upper body to generate power when we need it. So for example, if you're an ultra runner and you're running up hills and you're having to use poles, having that extra upper body strength is definitely going to help in terms of allowing us to generate more force, to use those muscles more effectively, and also then protect the tendons and things in and around those joints. And even in a cyclist, upper body strength training is going to be really useful to, just if you're pulling up the hill and you're trying to generate force through the handlebars, all that stuff is going to come into play in terms of improving your performance. Point number 5, how to structure a session. Okay, basically a real simple session is you want to do a pushing movement, a pulling movement, a hinging movement, and a squatting movement. Okay, if you can hit those 4 things and like 1 or 2 supplementary exercises where you might do, say, like a unilateral lower body movement, like a split squat or a lunge, you're going to do 3 sets of 3 sets of 1 to 5 reps. I would always stay in the 3 to 5 rep range. It's just a little bit easier to build a bit more volume into your training session, staying in that 3 to 5 rep range. Like just doing singles for a long period of time, for me, just becomes mentally boring, and then like there's the risk reward ratio. So you want to do push, pull, legs, hinge, 3 to 5 reps, 3 to 5 sets on each exercise, and then maybe add in 1 or 2 supplementary strength exercises that are related to your sport. So for example, in cycling, you might use a split squat or a lunge. In running, you might use something like Romanian deadlift, which is a hinging movement, but you might add in something that's Nordic just to develop the hamstrings a bit more, or a hamstring curl. All of those things really should then, all of those supplementary exercises we can then plug in to get sport-specific benefits relating to whatever it is that we're doing. So, and then ideally in an off season, you'd be looking at doing strength training maybe twice a week or 2 to 3 times a week. And this brings me on to a sort of hidden bonus point, which is kind of like a 5B. And 5B is this: if you're going to do strength training, try and keep it in your competition calendar. A lot of athletes, a lot of endurance athletes I work with, they'll have a lot of strength training in their off season. When it comes to competition season, their running volume, their cycling volume, or their overall training volume, if they're a triathlete, really starts to increase. They drop strength training. I understand why people do this, but honestly, the benefits of keeping some strength work in there, and again, if we're pragmatic with our strength training, we're not blasting ourselves to failure, the fatigue to stimulus ratio doesn't need to be that high that we can't maintain that level of strength through a cycling season or a running season or our endurance season without it having a detrimental effect on. So we might only do 1 session a week. It might be in a bridge session where we just go in and do, like I said, those 4 areas: a push, a pull, a hinge, and a squat. If you don't know what those things are, YouTube them, or I might do a video at some point. Go in and do those 4 things and just do like 3 sets on one exercise, 3 sets on each movement pattern. And then with those couple of supplementary exercises, just doing those things, relatively hard effort, but not blasting yourself, you'll find that when it comes to performance, when it comes to maintaining that power output through the entire competitive season, that it does reap massive benefits. So don't ditch strength work when it's competition season. Find a way to fit it in. I would guarantee you most athletes, particularly age groupers and athletes that I work with, like amateur athletes, would benefit from probably dropping a running session or a cycling session and putting a strength session in. Or if they are doing extra core work and things like that and attending other classes, ditching those and just doing pure strength work will have more of a benefit. Again, I'm not bashing core work, I'm not bashing mobility work, I'm not bashing recovery work, but I think that there's ways of combining those in a decent strength and overall workout anyway. Right guys, that's it for today. Hopefully these are 5 principles that you should follow and sort of reasons why you should do strength training as an endurance athlete. Hopefully you've got a bit of information about how to structure a session. And if you watched this video and you found it moderately helpful, please give it a like and a subscribe. And I also have my online membership is now launched, so I've clicked the link in the description there, where I have lots of strength programs for endurance. I have endurance programs, I have trail running programs, I have combat sports programs, which are all spreadsheets, which are kind of auto-adjusting, auto-regulated, depending on whatever level that you're at. It's all explained on the website link below. So all of my endurance programs always say in there, like, I would recommend doing 1 or 2 strength sessions per week, and those programs are on there. Right guys, so please check that out, see what you think, and I will be back with you very soon. Have a great rest of your week, whatever it is you're doing, wherever it is you're doing it, and I will speak to you soon. Peace.